around studying abroad for 2 years and came back finally last year. I feel like I grew up in a traditional city in northern China. I think the traditional culture was in my blood all the time, but I was not conscious about that. All the time I want to study Western culture, oil painting, sculpture, modern work. But more and more I was interested in the root, like where the culture come from, where I come from. I feel in my behavior. I have a lot of the details in the behavior you can trace really back to the old culture. And so last year when I visited Suzhou Garden, I think the garden is really good sample of the Chinese culture, the culture of all the media work together in a whole. In aesthetic, that aesthetic value represents itself in a garden design. The garden is a sample of space design, visually design, the painting, calligraphy, all the things, poetry work together. So that was a really fascinating trip. And then after a few months, I did a residence with Celine in Pujiang area, in a very modern residence area. But the residence area just next to a demolished old town. I visited the demolished area, and I found those traditional houses. They collapsed. They are in ruin. I found those elements of the roof, the column. They are in a transitional position, that they were demolished from old building and they are ready to go to a new area to recreate old architecture. So I found that interesting transitional place for material. It's interesting, it's like old became new, new became old. We all kind of live in a very modern area now. China is in a big movement of urbanization, destroying tradition, but at the same time you go to the tourist water town, ancient town, you see all of the ancient town are most popular tourist spots, creating imagination, a dream of old life, old school, old life. So material is in transitional. So in that residence, I started to use cardboard to kind of imitate architectural elements, look like old, but they are actually very new and very shallow. And cardboard is a very new, simple and shallow material. Easy to model, easy to change, easy to paint. It has so much surfaces you can work on. You can paint different pigment, and it's very easy to make it imitating anything. So I start to use cardboard to make architectural elements, and then I found the good thing about that is so convenient to carry with. I put all of the material, 1 month's work, within 2 luggages and bring them back to Beijing. As I work on those elements, put them back to make a little stool, a little chair, make interesting structures. And at the same time, it's easy to put it together and take it apart and traveling with. Easy to carry, very light. So I think that it's an important part in my work. The time is, it will look like a quick sketch, but also it it contains lots of hours of hand making. And also it's a new material, shallow material, but carries some memory of old. Yeah, I think that's an interesting place between old and new, between quick and long, and traveling experience. Also about the final structure. I don't really design. I don't have idea before I actually make it. Like in Beijing, I use all of the elements make different structure, but once I start traveling, I take them apart and I carry those elements, and they will find their final structure because of a specific space and a specific context. So because I came down to here to have exhibition in Shanghai, for me it's really a traveling go down to the river south. And it's a traveling or tracing back to a cultural root. So I decided to use that the rattan, the wisteria tree I saw last year in Suzhou Garden, that planted by Wen Zhengming, a very famous painter scholar from the 400 years ago. So it's interesting motif. It's object. It's culturally it's a symbol, and physically it's very independent object. Has an interesting structure and life. It's lively. It's alive. Went through all the history. It's kind of a bridge, connect tradition and present, connect past and future even. So I think I will use that as an inspiration to make the structure. And the structure, I believe the structure brings elements in the show together. Now you will see the other two spaces, and that's vases or other objects. Yeah, sure. Before I found the tree as a structure to put things together, I think I have all of the interested objects. I'm really interested in Chinese vases, ceramics, and some fabric maker I saw in Suzhou Garden, and all of the things. They're kind of pieces of elements. They need a structure to put them together. So we trace back to the root with the tree. The tree kind of lead us trace back to an ancient imagination, and I think that gave a sense of unit, a sense of a unified world. So what else? Okay, about this piece, it's actually a container. It's a luggage. The bamboo structure. It's a traditional luggage you carry. It's a backpack. you can have a shade on the top, and you carry all the books or something traveling. That's an interesting object. But I bought from Taobao. I bought from internet. It came in delivered here from Sichuan, and someone's still working on this traditional craft. So I think it's a very interesting structure. Like even without I do anything, it's already a beautiful sculpture. But I think it worked with my idea about the culture. I think Chinese culture for me is kind of love and hate. I think it's really fascinating and sophisticated, elegant, and also kind of a prison. Kind of a prison. It's not a culture that has it's not a culture that really developed. It's like a culture within 1,000 years without really developed much. It's kind of a prison. Like you get fascinated by it, but also it give you cover you. You don't. It's like give you lots of principles, lots of constraints. Yeah. So it's my my attitude about Chinese culture is like half and half. I love it, but also want to break it. So that idea make me feel like I want to make kind of a prison thing. The tree also like that. It's like a tree, but they create another space, cover you up. So there's this bamboo structure and the kraken. I think it's like a little prison, in another prison. Sculpturally, it's very interesting for sculptor to make structures like we can go in and out, and like non-stop traveling in the space. Yeah, structurally it's interesting for me, and ideally it's also a symbol of prison. And also interesting thing is Chinese poetry. In many Chinese poetry, they call cricket 醋汁, which they put fabric making and cricket together. They make the connection. I guess back to the ancient time when people make fabric, they don't have music, but they hear natural sound. They hear birds singing, they hear insects singing, and kind of in a similar rhythm. That's why in poetry, they put fabric machine and cricket together. So that was my idea. I think it's like about fabric making. But once I start to move it around, and more it looked like a boat. Anyway, I found it like a boat almost the last day of the installation, and I think I accept it. I think it's why not? It's good. Anyway, so it's a story about traveling, and traveling go to the river. So it's fun. I think it's interesting. I found the work found itself in the process of making through my body, and I didn't know what it is, and I realized I learned my work by making it and looking at it after. Also, the felt pieces started from the period I did the residence. So this is one of the felt piece. It's a natural material, woolen material, and many of the other vases made from artificial calligraphy felt. It's interesting material, soft, kind of fragile, but not really. And it's a surface. It's a surface to paint on. Okay, let's move to the other space. I copied those 3 letters, and then I feel like, I'm making my drawing, making my painting on the material, and it slowly became fabric. And then I think the pattern suggests me to cut them and make them 3-dimensional. Then I did. At the same time, I went to Shanghai Art Museum, look at ceramic work. There's a great, fabulous ceramic galleries in Shanghai Museum. So that was kind of very inspiration for me from that time. It's like even a very simple vase. You just look at it. You can look at it stare at it for hours. It's just like so fascinating to look. The shining surface work with light and create different shadows, and the outline is like changing all the time subtly. So that was my reference, and I make those objects. I think it's soft, but ceramic is kind of. It's not soft, but ceramic is very fragile. And before you put it in a kiln to fire it, it was clay. Actually, it's wet clay, it's soft clay, and it gets really easily to break. The fragility in ceramic is kind of like my way of using a soft material. It's like the softness kind of it's the soul of fragile ceramics. and also, if you look at it, if you look at ceramic making history, when they want to create very important mass, they will make few of them, and they only keep the best one, and they destroy the others. So if you visit ceramic centers like Qingdezhen, you see lots of ancient root of destroyed ceramic. They all kind of they go back to earth. They go back to dirt, and they destroyed it, and they borrow them underground. So those ruins was my imagination, was part of my reference. So I made those vases very slow, very intense work. Yeah. I guess it's also about the brokenness. It's like the elements of the cardboard from broken neighborhood, from demolished area, the brokenness, fragility, all there. Yeah.
If you have questions.
I said a lot. Well, anyway, the ideal situation is you just look at the work without telling anything. I guess I said too much. Yeah, but it's English, so maybe it's not really understandable. Yeah, so please, I really appreciate everybody to come here, and please look at the work, and don't touch that one. That one will fall any second if you don't. I didn't glue anything. They just really touch each other, make so it's quite fragile. Don't really try. Please look at the work and feel free to communicate with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.